What's up, YouTube? It's the Action Figure Grader coming back to you with another vintage Star Wars market update. This is for mint on card sales, and I know we just had one a few days ago, but I'm kind of at the mercy of the data presented to me. And in this case, there were a lot of vintage mint on cards, mainly Return of the Jedi and Palitoy tri-logo, but I've got some early card backs as well. And I started adding up all the things on my watch list that sold, and I was like, man, I need to get another video out. I've got so many mint on card data points that I wanted to share with you, and I thought, now's the right time to kind of keep pumping you guys with information, because it seems like there are some deals out there as we head into the fall. This is something that I kind of predicted back in June or July, and I said, wait till this fall. I think you're going to start to see prices drop a little bit. And while that wasn't the case for all of these items, there were some really good deals out there. So without further ado, let's dig right in. The first one is a really interesting one. This is an AFA 70 Takara Japanese release 12 back for C-3PO. And this one did have the alternate head sculpt. So these Takara 12 back Cs, as you can see on the label there from AFA, it says alternate head Takara sticker. And some of them had the alternate head sculpt, some of them did not, but you can see C-3PO's head there. It's a very kind of narrower face, I guess. I don't know what the right term is, but it just had a different head sculpt that was only specific to certain Japanese releases, early 12 backs from Takara. And this one had that. Now, mint on card is a different story than loose graded, but they both go for big money. I mean, I've seen some loose graded, very high grade examples go for $900 plus in an AFA 85, for example. So it's desirable whether it's mint on card or if it's loose graded. But this one did sell for a big number despite only having a 70 grade overall. It was a 70, 75, 90 archival case, clear blister, and it sold for $910 in an auction plus $20 shipping. Now, this was down in Mexico, but a beautiful example of that alternate head C-3PO. Very tough one to find, whether it's loose or mint on card, but a pretty gorgeous item, and that sold at auction. Next up was a 21 back Hammerhead. This has the free secret Star Wars action figure, and this is a transition card. Only the first 21 characters appeared on this very limited Empire Strikes Back card with that free secret Star Wars action figure offer for the Boss mail away. This one was graded 75, 75, 85 were the sub-scores. Clear blister, really nice example. It was punched. That one sold for $610. And we're going to come back to some Return of the Jedi transition cards a little bit later on. But I thought that price was actually pretty good for a 75 grade Hammerhead transition card. Very tough to find that one. Next up was the Star Wars Display Arena 45 back for Greedo, same seller. This one was graded 80 plus, but it did have a slightly yellowed blister, as you can see there on the grading label. 80, 85, 85. And this one does command a pretty big price point usually, whether it's clear blister or yellowed like this one. I've seen the clear blisters go for closer to $900 or $1,000 here recently. So this one was high grade, but it was yellowed, and that kept the price down just a little bit relative to some of the clear blister data points that we saw from a few months ago. This one sold for $680. Next up was another Star Wars Display Arena. This one was very slightly yellowed, the 21B Medical Droid. Great card back. This is one I do have in my collection, graded 75 plus by CAS. It is a clear blister, the one in my collection, but really nice example overall. It's very, very slightly yellowed. It looks really nice there, and I love that kind of Star Wars Display Arena blue sticker there. It really matches nicely with the blue of the 21B Medical Droid. Again, it was graded 80, 80, 85, and I believe that the 80 for the figure score. So very nice, and that one sold for $610. $610. So that one surprised me on the upper end of the scale. And as we dig into some of these Return of the Jedi card backs with yellow blisters, which is common for the U.S. card backs, you're going to start to see some maybe more affordable prices. But this one did surprise me on the upper end. I cannot remember what I paid for mine ungraded. I want to say I paid $375 for mine. And again, it was a clear blister, and it graded 75 plus. So it was a slightly lower grade, but it was clear versus yellow. But pretty big price point for that 21B droid. Next up is one I do have at AFA right now, and that is the debut card for Luke Skywalker in his Hoth battle gear. And that one is the 45 back as well. This one was graded 75 plus, yellowed. 75, 85, 85 were the sub scores, but just very slightly yellowed. But this is a very desirable item. And you know, the debut cards for any Luke is going to be very desirable, and this is certainly one of them. But I was a little bit surprised by this price point, actually. I thought this price was really good. $455 for a 75 plus, very slightly yellowed blister Luke Hoth. I thought that was a great deal. Next up, we're going to dig into some Return of the Jedi cards. And as I alluded to, I've got a couple of data points for the transition cards, which are the 48 back free Neonum offers. And the first one is Snaggletooth. This one was a gorgeous example. Very, very clean card, as you can see. Also clear blister, which it's not that difficult to find clear blister 48 backs. I've talked about this in past videos. In general, the 48 backs do tend to stay very clear blister, because it was a little bit after that in the 65 backs and later where they moved over to kind of like a fire retardant that was kind of used to help make those blisters. And as a result, those yellowed a lot easier. But the 48 backs did not have that chemical inside the blister, apparently. And in general, they do stay clear. And this one commanded a big price, $476. And again, this is a transition card, meaning that only Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars mint on card characters appeared on this Return of the Jedi card back. None of the Return of the Jedi character debuts were until the 65 back and later. So really nice example, though, very clean, probably 80 plus condition, and $476 plus $11 took that, $11 shipping took that one home. Here's another one. This one did have a slightly yellow blister, but it's for a very desirable character, and that's Yoda. Very tough to find this Yoda on the 48 back transition card Neonum offer, and this one sold for big money as a result. $1,125, just very slightly yellowed. And this is where we start to see the brown snake Yoda. I know that he appeared on some of the Empire Strikes Back cards, maybe the 47 back or the 48 back, where the brown snake started to appear. But this one is a very desirable card back, and it was unpunched, and again, very slightly yellowed, as you can see, but great condition, and the price did not disappoint. Again, it was $11.25 and change plus $11 shipping. Next up was a 65 back Han Solo Bespin outfit. Again, unpunched, but now is where you start to see the yellowing. The yellowing really starts to set in on these 65 backs and later releases. And so this one's got a pretty yellow blister, as you can see, but fantastic condition otherwise. And that one sold for $268.88 plus $11 shipping. I thought that was a pretty great price. Again, if this was a clear blister, you can easily double that price, but I thought that was a pretty fair price just given the yellow blister. Next up was a very faint yellow blister to Lando Calrissian in his Skiff Guard disguise. That presents really nicely. I think that the yellowing of the blister blends in nicely with Jabba's palace behind him there, so it's not too bad. And also in great condition, another unpunched card. I don't know this seller, Lee's Toy Review. I've seen him sell a lot on eBay, but he had some gorgeous examples, especially for Return of the Jedi cards and for the Palitoy Tri-Logos, which we'll go over in a second. But $123 plus $11 shipping. I thought that was a fantastic deal, whoever got that one in an auction. Next up was a 65 back Darth Vader. Now, it did mention that it does have some damage, and that's what kept the price down on this one. I believe it's, let's see here. Card has a tiny mark on the front and scrapes on the back. The blister is yellow. So it did have some slight damage to the card, whether it was ink touch-up or just litho damage, I don't know. But it got a pretty good price, $242 plus $11 shipping. I thought that was a pretty fair price, just given the condition of that one. It presents really nicely. Next up was Luke Skywalker in his X-Wing fighter pilot outfit. And again, very slightly yellowed. I've got this exact same card back, the 65 back A. And mine is a lot more yellow than this one. This one just had a kind of a moderate level of yellowing. It did look like have some slight creasing below the blister there on the front of the card back. Just some light edge wear here and there. It was punched, but pretty clean card overall. And the price reflected that. It sold for $315.99 plus $11 shipping. I think that was a very fair price as well. Next up, we're going to dig into some Made in Spain Spanish PvP. And as you guys know, the Cantina creatures were released on U.S. card backs, and they were made in Spain, and it was only for the Cantina creatures, to my knowledge. Walrus Man, Hammerhead, Greedo, and Red Snaggletooth. And this one is the Walrus Man. It did have some damage to the card from where the price sticker was attempted to be removed unsuccessfully. Very heavily yellowed, which unfortunately is very common. But you can see on the back of the card in the lower left-hand corner, it does say Made in Spain. And the back of the card is very similar to the US Lily Letty card backs, where it's kind of a matte finish. It's not quite as glossy or as vibrant as the US card backs. These Spanish card backs were kind of matte, very matte finish, very similar to the Lily Letty's. Anyway, that one sold for $212.88. I thought that was a very fair price, just given the condition issues of that one. And then also the same seller had this one. This one was the 77 back red snaggletooth. Again, it was the Made in Spain release. You can see how matte that finish is on the back. And then again, on the lower left-hand corner where you can see where it says Made in Spain. But that one was a clear blister. That's tough to find. It did have some creases on the card, as the seller did denote. That one still sold for big money, mainly because of the clear blister. $338 plus $11 shipping. I think that was a very fair price, just given the condition issues. You can see down here in the lower left-hand corner the creasing that the seller was disclosing there. But the blister was in great shape, nice and clear, and it presents a lot nicer. I think it's probably like a 75 grade overall, but it presents really nicely with that clear blister. So I think that was a good buy at $338. Next up, we've got a 77 back yellow blister Death Star droid, and I have this exact same card back in my collection, although mine is not quite as yellow to this as this one. This one's very heavy yellowing to this one, but a great card back, a pretty iconic card back. Love the purple background on those Death Star droid card backs. It's just an awesome card. It was punched, and it did have some light wear here and there to it. That still sold for $450, which I thought was a little high in my opinion. But the Death Star droids are, there's a certain subset of collectors like me that just love the Death Star droid, and they are willing to pay up for it. And you can see the back of the card there. This one was the Smile Factory, HG, in the lower right-hand corner shows the factory code, which was the Hong Kong Smile Factory. But very nice card back overall, and $450 took that one home plus shipping. Next up was a 77 back Jawa. That one sold for $219.50. I thought that was a great price. The card was in great shape overall. This was a made in China card back, so very rare to see that one. Usually they are made in Hong Kong, but this one was the Chinese card back. Although I still think that the Jawa itself is probably a Hong Kong Jawa. I've never seen a China COO Jawa, but they were assembled at least in China, because it does say that on the back of the card. It says figures made in China, but you guys tell me. I'm not a Jawa expert by any means, but I suppose it could be like a no COO Jawa, but there are no Jawas to my knowledge that have a China on the back of the leg for those Jawas. But very nice example. Again, very heavily yellowed blister, slight ding to the blister. Again, $219.50. I think that was a pretty great price. Next up, we got yet another Yoda. This was an unpunched 77 back Jedi Master, and this one had the alternate card back and a very yellow blister, brown snake, and that one sold for $620. So any Return of the Jedi mint on card Yoda, they're going to command a higher price premium versus the 32 back B, which is his debut card. Just fewer than made. The 32 back B is very readily available. Lots of them out there, but the Return of the Jedi, especially with the alternate card back, your alternate card image, you're going to be paying some big money for it. I thought $620 was very fair, just given the yellow blister. Again, if you guys are buying these yellow blisters, you do have to be careful about who you buy from and make sure that you ask them to pack them very carefully, ideally in a star case, because those yellow blisters are super brittle. They can shatter just by looking at them. And much like my psyche, when my children just look at me the wrong way, my psyche shatters, and these yellow blisters are no different. Next up, we've got a 77 back Leia Organa Hoth unpunched card. Beautiful example. That one sold for $532. It does seem like Leia Hoth on the Return of the Jedi card backs, whether they're yellow blister or clear blister, they all seem to go for big money. I don't know what it is. They just command a big price premium. Next up, we got a Leia Organa 77 back Leia Bespin, though, and this one was a nice example. Looks like it might have had just a little bit of frosting on the top of the head there, which does happen occasionally inside these blisters. Hard to tell for sure. It might just be, the yellowing of the blister, but at least from this angle, the head does look like it has some kind of frosting on there, but I could be wrong on that. But the card itself was in great shape, just a little bit of sticker residue in the upper right-hand corner. And there's the back of the card there. Again, $280 took that one home. I thought that was a pretty great price. Next up, we've got a Canadian Emperor. And wow, what a beautiful example. This one had just very light yellowing to the inner tray, but that is a gorgeous example of the Canadian card back for the Emperor. It was unpunched. Here's the back of the card with the La Guerre des Étoiles in the upper left-hand corner. Just some slight rubbing on the back of the card there, but that is a gorgeous card back. Not one you see come up at auction very often. That one sold for $447 on 28 bids. Honestly, I think that price is great. Very heavy yellowed blisters for just the U.S. release of the Emperor can command that kind of price. So to get the Canadian example with a fairly clear outer blister with just yellowing to the inner tray for $447, I think that was a great price. Congratulations to whoever bought that one. Next up, we've got the Made in Mexico Lumat. Last 17 figure, and again, these typically do stay clear because they were made with a different type of blister. And as you can see on the back of the card, it does have that factory punch over by Anakin. That was applied to the back of the card by the Lili Ledy factory down in Mexico. And as you can see on the bottom portion of the card, it does say figures made in Mexico. To my knowledge, all of the Lumats were Lili Ledys, and this one was a gorgeous example. It did have some light damage from where the price sticker was attempted to be removed again. And if you got something like that with a price sticker, leave the price sticker intact or send it off to some expert, because it's really it really detracts from the card. I think I'd almost rather just have the price sticker on there rather than that damage on there. But anyway, that one sold for $162.50. I mean, look, a loose Lumat, you know, ungraded, can sell for more than that. So one thing to keep in mind is that Lumat, his torso does discolor, and that is the case with this one. You can see how that torso has slightly yellowed versus the arms and the legs. So that's something to look out for. Next up, we've got another Made in Mexico Ewok, and that is Paplu on the 79 back with the free Anakin offer. Again, the blister is nice and clear. Very nice example, just some light wear around the hang tab. And that one sold for $174.50. I thought that was another great price. Really good deal on that one. Again, you know, Lee's Toy Review, he had a bunch of different auctions going. So this might be a case where some of these more common items like Paplu and Lumat kind of fell through the cracks, so to speak, as people were kind of going after some of the more expensive and harder to find mint on card items. Next up was a 79 back Kenobi. That one sold for $357 plus $11 shipping. Pretty heavy yellowing to the blister, but this one is also the, you know, it says made in China. Again, to my knowledge, I don't believe there is a Chinese COO for Kenobi. So like the Jawa, it's probably a Hong Kong figure that's packed inside here. But again, I'm not an expert. I'm just going on memory here. To my knowledge, there's a no COO. There's the Lili Ledy. There's a Spanish POC and PBP, and then the Hong Kong. And then obviously there's different hair colors to go along with that. But to my knowledge, there's not a Chinese COO for Kenobi. So again, like the Jawa, it's probably packed in with a Hong Kong figure. $357 took that one home. Now we're going to finally dig into some tri-logos. We got C-3PO with his removable limbs. This was a pretty nice example. Just some slight denting to that tri-logo blister. You can see some heavy denting down there at the bottom though. That one sold for $217.50. I thought that was a great price for a mint on card Palitoy. This one was especially a good deal. You don't find the Ugnaught very often on this Palitoy tri-logo at auction. Usually they're a lot more expensive than that. That one sold for $240. It did have a slight spider vein coming off of the hang tab there, so that probably kept the price down. The blister itself was in pretty great shape, just some light denting there. Again, $240 plus $11 shipping. I thought that was a great price. And then finally, we've got Ramba. Ramba did have someone, again, tried to peel off the sticker on there. Now, these new figure 1 pound 59, they were applied by the Palitoy factory at the factory before they even shipped them out. So those are not going to come off very easily. And it's a shame that somebody tried to peel that off. I would have left it on there. But the blister itself was in great shape. You can see how clean that blister is. Just some light denting. Given how fragile those Palitoy tri-logo blisters are, though, I thought that was a pretty nice example of the blister. It was unpunched, but it just had that damage from where someone tried to peel off that factory applied sticker, and that held the price down. $306 plus $11 shipping took that one home. So anyway, there are some good deals out there. You just got to be patient, and you have to look for these big auction lots where maybe you can pick up some of these more common mint on cards while everybody goes after the rarer, harder to find mint on cards like that Canadian Emperor that sold for a pretty big price. So that's all I really had for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon.